All right, welcome everybody back to another episode of Perspectives, third party discussion. Bill Redpath of the Libertarian Party, and I'm David Rich of the Green Party, here to provide you with insights into what the top two third parties in our nation think about specific issues, current events, political stuff, economics, blah, blah, blah. Tonight we're going to discuss education, a very, very big issue, always. Okay, so this is not one to trifle with by any stretch. And we watched a three-part series on YouTube called School Inc. Admittedly, I got about 15 minutes shy of finishing the third one, but I did the rest. I should be okay. But it's a fascinating series, very insightful. Gentleman goes pretty much just across the globe and talks about historical advances and innovations in education, and goes across the globe looking at recent innovations in education in different countries, different areas, where things went from very, very bad to very, very good in a relatively short period of time, and why. So this is kind of this was your idea. This is your baby. Okay, my phone is going to be stupid. So hold on a second. I always forget to turn it
on. At least it's not during a funeral or a wedding,
Yeah, well, it might someday it will be. But so why don't you go ahead and kick it off for us?
Yeah, well, I will. I knew of this series for years. I mean, it says it's apparently dated 2017, so it was actually released 6 years ago, and I had been meaning for a long time to watch it, and I'm glad I did. I watched all 3 episodes earlier today. They're all on YouTube.
Yep.
The length of each is 56 and a fraction minutes. So it's just a little bit shy of an hour. Produced by WNET in New York, which is the public television station in New York City, and but Free to Choose Media, which was based out of Erie, Pennsylvania. Free to Choose Media did the Milton Friedman documentaries back in 1980, and anyway, first of all, Andrew Coulson, unfortunately, who was the person who was on screen, and he actually wrote it and directed it. So he was the actor isn't the right word, but the presenter. He was the presenter, and he wrote it and he directed it. So he was quite busy, but unfortunately, very, very unfortunately, tragically, he died in 2016 because it said in memory of Andrew Coulson, 1967 to 2016.
I did see that. I didn't pick up his name, so I didn't realize it was him.
Oh yeah, no, that the presenter died of a brain tumor, as I recall.
Jesus.
Yeah, he was 48 or 49 years old. He was at the Cato Institute for many years, and just a tragic thing. But he certainly was well traveled doing that program. And I saw another name in the credits, by the way, Bob Chitester, Chitester. Anyway, he's the person who collaborated with Milton Friedman back in 1980. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago, involved in the production of this and the Milton Friedman stuff back 40 some years ago. But in any event, wow, first of all, I wonder what it cost to produce that. I mean, he went to all over the world, basically, to Korea, to Chile, to Sweden, to various places in the United States. Holy cow, this guy traveled a hell of a lot to produce, a 56, about 56 times 3 would be like 168 minutes, 170 minutes of documentary. But it was entertaining, that's for sure. Before we get into more specifics, what did you think of it?
I thought it was great. I thought it was very well done, very edited and put together very well. I thought the presenter did a really great job. It had definitely not just like informational value, but it also had like entertainment value.
Yeah.
Like I said, the editing was done very well. The interviews were great. Who he interviewed, from the kids to the teachers to whomever else, was a nice vast array of different opinions and insights into what was going on there. I just, like I said, we were talking on the phone earlier, I love things like this, not just for all that I just mentioned, but I like watching things that explain how things came to be. And like there was a series a long time ago, and I don't remember what it was, and I just remember getting a lot out of it of like, this invention like allowed for these inventions to occur, like, just kind of tied it all together. It was very interesting. I don't remember what it's called, but like, like for example, the Scottish teacher who like took the chalkboard tablets from the kids and put them all up on the front of the room. That's
Right.
where school chalkboards came from. Like whoever knew, like wonders where they come from. I was just like, wow, that's cool. Like who knew that?
Yeah.
So I got a lot out of it. It was very enjoyable for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So
Mm.
anyway, so there are, there were 3 different episodes, and he kind of went through in the episode 1, and like I said, this is all on YouTube. Just
Right.
search School,
Yeah.
Inc. period,
Yeah.
and you'll call them right up 1, 2, 3. But well, first of all, talking about South Korea, that whole situation and the teachers there, who, I mean, first of all, really driven academically there. I mean, that's for sure. And it was interesting where there was one interviewee who said, they had a student who said, there's a lot of pressure here. I'm under a lot of pressure to perform. You got to get into the right universities here to really move up the scale or move up in society, so to speak. And then there was an older man whom they interviewed, and he said, there's really too much pressure in this system here. And it was an interesting admission. And I don't know if there have been changes in that regard subsequent to, and obviously Andrew Coulson was there. So that interview had to occur 2016, probably 2015 was when a lot of those interviews occurred. So anyway, but then they interviewed the teacher, the teachers did. And that one teacher said that over the past 10 years, he had earned, somebody's getting a big cut, basically, because he said he had earned $100 million over 10 years as a teacher in South Korea. His cut was 25%, so he earned 25 million. My question is, who's getting the other 75 million? I mean,
probably the government.
I don't know. I don't think he's. I think that he's in a private organization, though. I don't think he works for the government.
My first assumption was it was taxed away, but that was merely an assumption. I have no idea. You're right.
That wasn't how I took it, but maybe you're right. You were possibly correct. Yeah. So that is absolutely amazing that his lectures are so popular that people are willing to pay that kind of dough. It was amazing. But and the and what did they call them? Hogwans, right?
Hogwan, yeah. Because I remember it sounded like Hogwarts from what's his Harry Potter.
But these Hogwans were essentially private study groups, right? I mean, these were tutoring services called Hogwans, and for a while they were made illegal.
They were banned.
They were banned for a while in South Korea, and
that's crazy to me.
It was interesting that they would the way they tried to circumvent the cops, circumvent the law there. One kid said, oh, well, they were studying in this one Hogwan was in a second floor of this building, and there was a restaurant down below, and they were only supposed to go until, I forget what,
10 o'clock. So after the ban was lifted, then it was regulated to be over by, you could do private tutoring, but it had to end by 10 p.m.
10 o'clock.
Like, okay, so they would like shut off the lights, go somewhere else. And like, again, just get around the
go to a restaurant down below or something, and then they would come by and check, and after somebody would come by and check, they turn the lights back on, kids would go up. I got to tell you, I mean, that is amazing. I mean, I don't know. There aren't too many kids in the United States who'd like to study like that. No, I don't think so. But in any event, pardon me, but it was interesting how driven the people there were in South Korea. And then some history about New England private schools in New England back in the
1844. There was this massive Bible riot, I think it was called. I mean, 25 people were. Is that what you're talking about?
I wasn't talking about that. Was in Philadelphia. Was that in Philadelphia? That was in Philadelphia.
I think so.
That was where that church burned, at St. Augustine Church.
Right.
That was in the third episode. But some talk, Horace Mann and New England private schools. All right, that was in the first, and okay, it was somewhat interesting. But then that story about Jaime Escalante was what. Go ahead and talk about that.
Jaime Escalante. So he was like over in the boroughs of the Spanish areas of I believe L.A.
That is correct.
Yeah, and I remember seeing the movie. They said the name now, I forget it. Not Stand By Me, whatever it was called. And I didn't realize that movie was based on a true story. I saw it back in like the 80s. I mean,
I never saw the movie.
It was a very powerful movie.
Okay.
And brings up a lot of different other different issues concerning the effects of education. But no, it was a great movie. I didn't realize that it was based on a true story. Knowing that this now makes me even happier. This gentleman was amazing. He really motivated the kids. He was I remember one of his students who ended up working for like NASA or something, by the way, just loved him. Said he was a real character and he was funny and he made learning enjoyable, but still demanded excellence 100%. He wasn't accepting mediocrity even.
Yeah.
And it really upped the test scores. Like these people in these poor area were getting higher test scores than like people in the affluent rich areas. And that's his demise actually occurred via his popularity. After the movie came out, a lot of the teachers got jealous. They got bitter, resentful. There is this attempt, like if we don't all do it together, then nobody does it, which is nonsense. But they attacked him. He ended up leaving that school and going into another one. And I guess at the time, at least, since then he's become rather legendary. But at the time, I mean, I guess his reputation was a bit smeared.
Yeah, but what was interesting was that the students were taking the advanced placement.
Yes.
Was it calculus or some sort of mathematics?
He was a math teacher.
Yeah, well, it was mathematics. I think it was advanced placement calculus, yes. And their scores were so good that the test monitors, it was the people of, I think it's the same people who put out the SAT test, I think, and these advanced placement tests, and the scores were so high that they suspected cheating, yes. And I think they made some students retake the exam.
They threw out the first batch, made them, I don't know about all of them, okay, made it, but just some of them, but they threw out at least some of the tests. Like, no way, there's cheating going on. Made them take it again, and they scored just as well, if not better.
Yeah, and so probably under controlled conditions.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, but he ended up. They said he started in 1974, and then he left in 1991. It was in the late 80s where things began going south. Yeah. The other teachers got jealous and that sort of thing. What I'd like to know, I don't think they said what happened to him. I mean, no. From 1991, I mean, a quarter century passed or more between the time he left the high school and the time of the production of School Inc. I don't recall a mention being made of what became of him.
Nothing. My assumption there was that he's passed away and they're just trying to smear his.
Could be. But in any event, but it was a lot about South Korea and how customer oriented how customer oriented the education there is. And then they talked about how North and South Korea diverged. And it really started in the 1970s. Of course, the war ended in 1953. And apparently there wasn't a whole lot of progress in South Korea until the early 70s. And then the North and South diverged. And then they talk about per capita income in South Korea at the time of the production of School Inc. was 20 times higher than per capita income in North Korea. And, they showed the satellite image that I think everybody's seen of nighttime over there, all the light coming from South Korea, except for Pyongyang. Basically, North Korea is drenched in darkness at night. Anyway, so it was trying to see if there was anything else there, but that was about it. That's I think that's a pretty good summation. I don't recall all the ins and outs of the New England private school situation, but it was mainly about South Korea and their education system.
Yes, no, for sure. And Chile's got a decent amount of time too, but I mean, I guess South Korea probably got the most amount of attention because of how successful it is. And I looked up some stats just independently of the series. And it's so frustrating when I see all these different things. I try to check to make sure the citations are considered legitimate. And each one of them I saw was, but I saw like 4 different lists of stats of like which countries right now rank highest in say mathematics and reading. And every single one was different. I'm like, okay. I'm like, so I'm like, I didn't know who to trust or whatever else. Like, America was ranked number one in like one or two of them, and then like, ranked like 20th and a couple others. I'm like, well, I mean, okay, there's some disparity there. If one, was one first in like a couple, like second, a couple others, I can understand that. Statistics have margins of error and so on, but when it's first in a couple and 20th and another one, that doesn't make sense. But I do know that like I mean, politically, I can't speak to any other country, but I mean, it's probably the case in most countries, if not all, that everything tends to get politicized. It definitely happens in this country, where education is a huge political hot topic, and people on competing sides, are very, very adamant, even vehement about their position. Some of it in this country, we're still dealing with like, religion in public schools laws. I mean, there's a guy that talking about in Louisiana, because they were talking about New Orleans.
Oh yeah.
And that's where maybe that's where the riot started. No, I don't know.
Yeah, it's Philadelphia. It was Philadelphia.
Okay, so 1844, I think he said, it's called the Bible riot. So basically, one of the judges or school boards or somebody else on the higher ups decided to take reading the Bible out of the public school curriculum, and I would say rightly so. But people freaked out, like started burning shit down and started shooting people and stuff like that. 25 people were killed. There was a kid who was,
I mean, you got to make sense, I guess.
Yes, that's where it all started, folks. How the Liberty Bell got cracked. And we're still dealing with that. I guess there's some sort of like legal standards in Louisiana where like if you're teaching biological evolutionary creation, like you have to supplement it with the like creationism or something like that. Or
there was something going on there, and in New Orleans over that, and I would just say, to each his own. I mean, I think the truth will out ultimately, and people want to send their kids to creationism school. I mean, that's hey, you know what? That's up to them. But I think that it's obviously a disservice to.
But I mean, the whole thing of like the notion of public means like to be as objective as possible, so you can cover everybody. Public means anybody or every. That's what it means. Mm-hmm. And so like to advance culturally subjective ideologies in a public objective, attempting to be as objective as possible forums, I think is absolutely unacceptable. Like you said, like if you want to teach your kids creationism, that's what Sunday school is for. That's what church is for. Okay, but then that's fine. Nobody's trying to take that away from you. But this insistence that it be in the public curriculum is unacceptable.
Right. I agree with. If they want to do it in a private school. If they want to do it in a private school, fine. And even if vouchers are used for that, I still say fine. I don't think there's much chance it's going to actually sway scientific debate.
It's not. And I've studied creationism, and I know a decent amount about biological evolution. And the theory of evolution is not perfect. I get that, because a lot of times their opponents will like just bring up a couple of issues with it and like, oh, see, the whole thing's false. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. Having a philosophy degree, I've studied a lot of theories. I've never seen one from its inception that was wholly correct without needing revision over time. Never seen it, ever. But to disregard the entire thing because of a couple of, epistemological limitations on it or misunderstanding or whatever is completely unacceptable as well. That's not a rational way to approach data.
Yeah, right? No, I agree with that. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so well, let's talk about vouchers, because they bring up all sorts of like alternative possibilities of successful educational systems. Vouchers is one, again, a hot topic issue. What do you think about vouchers?
Well, I think they're good. I think that, but he also he compared vouchers with the education tax credits, and I think that they said that basically the education tax credits it's money voluntarily going from. It's all voluntary. That is, the money is voluntarily given by the donors who are taking the education tax credits, and then and parents are sending their children voluntarily to certain schools. And I think that near the end, I don't know whether you saw this near the end of the third episode, but I think that Andrew Coulson was signaling that, yeah, vouchers are good, but the education tax credits are better. And I can see his point, but still, I think that just introducing competition here is what is truly important, and particularly what going in India. Oh my goodness! I mean, the way he, he didn't universally badmouth public schools in India, but they got extremely low marks, obviously, from people in India who claimed that kids are just being ignored
in public school, like just abandoned.
Yeah, just abandoned. And so, I mean, competition makes us all better at what we do, keeps us on our toes, and education is no different. So I think that, that there are, I know libertarians, and then there is a Soho. I've been meaning to go back and watch or listen to the Soho forums are these debates that occur in New York City, and they're recorded. They're available on reason.com. If you go to podcasts, reason.com, then go to podcasts, there's a drop down menu, and then there are Soho forums. And I've been meaning to go back. There was a debate recently between somebody who said libertarians should support the school choice movement in the United States, and somebody else who said, no, they shouldn't. They should go strictly for a total separation of school and state. And there be no state subsidization of education whatsoever in the United States. And I'd like to see that debate. I'm more of a let's not have the perfect be the enemy of a good type person on just about everything, and that certainly includes education. Right. But I think introducing competition into the education system is extremely important for the future of all the students and the future of this nation.
I think the future of humanity depends wholly
there you go.
High quality education.
David, you always think bigger than I do.
I'm a big picture kind of guy.
That's
always
right.
Have been. But I agree. I mean, we decided last week, education is very important to both of us. That's why we decided to do this. And with your recommendation of watching the series, it was a really good starting point. But yeah, I said something last week about like whatever vision of the world, how it should be, I have, and I've had many different visions. Each one always includes a massive emphasis on education, always. Like, I just don't see how else it can be done. And I think it ties into basically just human identity. I mean, we're conscious beings. Our very nature is to experience, learn, and grow from that. That's what we do. And if we're not doing it, we should be doing it. Okay. And the only way to do that is through learning. And learning can come in forms of formalized education. It can come in just reading a book. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways to go about it. So that actually, I want to use that as a segue to something. Okay, referring to that movie, but with the character being Jaime. Back in the 80s, I remember reflecting on that movie decades later, and remember growing up in the 80s where there was an emphasis on white collar employment. Mm-hmm. And nothing against white collar people or even blue collar people. But I mean, to this day, I still, especially being a bartender, I still hear some resentment between blue collar and white collar. Like, it's not like all over the place, but I know there's some sort of disparity between the two. And for white collar employers, usually, not always, but usually, you have to have a college education. I think that's where some of the animosity towards education comes from. You see on like the MAGA folks, like, they're not having education. They seem like morally opposed to the damn thing. And that's very odd to me, because they get in their car that the people who built needed to have a college education to create. But like, and that point being is like during the 80s, there was almost a condescension concerning blue collar employment. Like, it's better to be white collar than it is to be blue collar. That's why you need to go to college. The college is directed merely towards your profession and the upgrading of your life concerning your profession, which is true, but it's not always the case. So that's why I always say about education, I'm drawing a distinction between formalized, like university education, say, and like, just acquiring a skill. Mm-hmm. Blue collar employment jobs are extremely important. We would have no infrastructure without it. You wouldn't have houses. You wouldn't have plumbing. You wouldn't have electricity. Okay. And so like the whole sort of pejorative view of blue collar, and I don't know, I don't have numbers. This is my personal recollection. Needs to go away for sure. Would you like to?
No, I agree. I mean, it's there seems to be a shortage of just about every type of worker out there these days. But I think that. Do you know who Mike Rowe is?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Dirty Jobs.
There you go. Yeah, and I really didn't watch the show And then I saw Ford commercials. He was a spokesman for Ford, and he goes, "Hey, I'm Mike Rowe," and of course I hadn't seen the show, so I was like, "Okay, who's Mike Rowe?" Well, I found out, and anyway, but he again something on Reason.com. He was just interviewed recently by Nick Gillespie at Reason.com, and he thinks that it was a big mistake. I mean, there are high schools. I guess there are high schools that have done away with shop class, and I think that. I think that there needs to be more respect for technical education and shop class these days, and it wouldn't be bad to include certain things. I'll give you an example, although this is not shop class. Driver's ed, okay? You know what I never got taught. I've never done. Okay, call me a wuss if you want, but but seriously. I've never changed a tire. I don't know how to change a tire on a car. All right. And I've heard someone say, they ought to teach that in driver's ed class. Damn right they should. Absolutely they should. And I think that, and maybe they do these days, but back in the 1970s, they didn't do it in Ohio. I'll tell you that. Instead, they made you watch a movie of involving auto accidents. Do you ever do that and try to take driver's ed in high school? And then
I took driver's ed. Well, in Illinois, at least, you had to in order to get a license.
Did they show you a movie that was meant to scare you, that showed gory accidents and was meant to scare you into driving safely?
I don't recall that. I will have to let me ponder this after the show and get back to you. But if they did, it's entirely possible. Knowing my aesthetic dispositions, that I just saw it as like a cool horror movie, and I love horror movies. But I don't recall that happening. But
I remember that I had to get up and leave the room, and there went my medical career. But seriously, that's an example of it, and I think that there are certain trade type things. I mean, and look, I'm the most unhandy male who's ever lived, unless it was my father. and I think my industrial arts teachers in junior high school went on permanent disability after having me as a student.
It's over.
Yeah, yes, that's right. Having read best as a student took too much out of me. I've got to retire at 47 or whatever. But anyway, but no, there are certain things, trade type things that would benefit all students, I think, and would be arguably better than some of the things they're studying in school. I don't know, just a thought.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, I took auto shop and I took wood shop in high school. I in retrospect, I think I had some sort of degree of like ADHD or something. I remember having a very, very difficult time paying attention, and built a lot of things incorrectly and didn't even notice till I was done with the project that I screwed it up. So I had a lot of embarrassing moments. However, my stepfather was a very handy guy. He could build or fix just about anything, which was cool. And taught me a bunch of stuff. I can change a tire. I've changed tires on the side of the road at least a dozen times. I could probably, with all the new stuff in car engines, I can't do much with all the computer stuff. But back in the day, I could change spark plugs and time it and change the oil and stuff like that. Now it's more cost efficient just to take it to Jiffy Lube or something like that. They do a really nice job and they do more to it in less time for $35 than I would spend time.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I'd be totally lost. I mean, at this point in my life, I've just decided, hey, I'm at the things I'm a bum at. I'm always going to be a bum. Things I'm good
You're
at.
not a bum. I mean, again, that's why I said it before. I'm not trying to disparage white collar employment. It's very important. The flow, the logistical flow of things is important too.
I think you're right, and I think that. I don't know. Do you think there's more respect for blue collar employment now than there was back 40
I don't
years
know. That's why I said I don't have numbers.
I don't know either.
I don't know. I hope so, because I think there was a turn within the last 20 years. Again, seemingly where people said if we don't start acknowledging the importance of these jobs, we're not going to have carpenters or plumbers or mechanics in the future. We're going to, or not, at least not enough.
And then you hear people talk about, well, they need blue collar labor at their home, but they can't get anybody out to do it. I mean, it's just there's a shortage in all sorts of work. I read about. I'm an accountant, and I'm not currently in the labor force, And if I go back into the labor force, probably be doing something else. But there's, I read about accountant shortages all over the place these days, and so, but particularly blue collar as well, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, mechanic shops need their numbers crunched just as much as anybody else does, much as big corporations do, investment firms and so on. But I don't know. Like, I mean, see, the thing is with education is it ties into literally everything. Like, I'm thinking now about blue collar jobs and maybe a lack of desire amongst American natives to perform these jobs, or a lesser desire across the population, and migration. Immigration, how people come in and maybe because of linguistic challenges or obstacles, they don't feel like learning, going to school and mastering English. It's easier for them to maybe just get a job in a restaurant or a mechanic shop. Again, I mean, the gentleman just came over and did a paintless dent repair for my mom's car. He was a Hispanic. We were talking a bit about where he came from, how he started his job and stuff like that. And he did a fabulous job. I want an opportunity for anybody to go to school and get an education for whatever they want to do. Point being is that these jobs need to occur. They need to be occupied. We need them for everything, literally. No blue collar jobs, no anything else, because it's our infrastructure. And there's a multitude of different ways to approach that. There was a lady who was running for a local office here. I won't mention her name because she took a different turn. Who said that one of her campaign platforms was to create there was a building that was unoccupied. It was abandoned. It was a big building. She's like, I would love to take that building and create a blue collar school. Mm-hmm. There's this department does electrician stuff. This one does mechanics, and then just the whole thing's blue collar. Mm-hmm. That's a great idea. Now, I think that a lot of community colleges have that functioning right now. I know College of Lake County has a multitude of different things, from nursing to mechanics to agriculture. I got my agricultural science certification from CLC. I mean, all sorts of stuff. So I'm not sure that her plan was a necessary one, but it was a good one. And I love seeing attention being drawn again back to the importance of blue collar working, because college, like a 4-year college degree isn't for everybody, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. A master's degree certainly isn't. A PhD is even less so. That's fine. You don't have to do that to be successful in our society, or to be worthwhile in our society. Again, blue collar workers are extremely important. Sorry, go
ahead. No, that's. I hear you. No question.
Yeah. And and it allows people like yourself or myself. Like, I mean, I do very little. I mean, I do gardening, which is blue collar for sure. But I mean, other than that, I don't really do much physical labor. And I'd rather call AAA to fix my tire than to get out of my car and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, not because I don't know how to, because it's just kind of a pain in the ass. And I have somebody who will come and do it for $65 a year.
Well, I knew. And some people won't do it for professional reasons. I knew someone whose father was a surgeon. He would not change a tire,
just in case he hurt his hands.
Exactly. He said he refused to change a tire because he was a surgeon.
That doesn't seem unreasonable to me.
Right.
So I mean, yeah. I mean yeah. I mean, it's like you need to keep your hands, ready to do surgery. AAA is awesome, by the way. It's extremely affordable, and then, they'll tow you, they'll bring you gas, they'll give you a ride if you blah blah blah. I mean, it's pretty cool for like $100 a year or something like that. That's like the premium package too. It's pretty cool. Plus, most of your car insurance, maybe even all of it by law, I don't even know, has roadside assistance and stuff like that. It's almost like you have checking accounts, the banks that offer, I mean, like everybody's offering roadside assistance now. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So the market is becoming saturated. I don't know. Everybody, just so you know, if you're watching, A, thank you for watching. B, there is a comment section on the right. If you want to, comment, criticize, question, whatever you want to do, just don't be mean. So what about charter schools? What do you think about those? Because I know those are. I met somebody. Oh man, she's a libertarian. You know what I'm talking about? Amanda?
Amanda Parsons.
Yeah, doesn't she work for a charter school?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so that's her.
I'm not sure, but she's definitely a teacher.
Okay. Yeah. She's fabulous. And we were talking one day a few years ago, and she's like, you should really try to get a job at a charter school. I'm like, oh, that'd be great. And I talked to a friend of mine who works at the high school I went to, and she just went off about charter schools. Oh, she was not having it. So what do you think?
Well, again, it's competition. I mean, but it's like the teachers union, they're trying to kill charter schools here in Illinois.
Right.
I mean, it's and remember the video there? You saw the video of that fellow in Massachusetts, right? Do you remember that? In the second episode, I think, where he was asked he was on a panel and the moderator asked, well, why did you work to kill the charter schools? And he says, well, I was superintendent of the public schools. We wanted the money, and he was pretty upfront about it. I mean, he wasn't nasty. He was professional, but he didn't pull any punches either in terms of, why he stood against charter schools. So I think charter schools are a step in the right direction. They are public schools that are subject to different rules usually, but if you pile too many rules on them and don't give them the chance to innovate, then the advantage is greatly reduced. So but it's a definite step in the right direction, no question.
Yeah, they seem like a pretty cool idea to me. And we talked last week about unions. I am pro union, but I never want anything to stand in the way of accomplishment, when unions start doing stuff like that, I'm not going to blame like unionism, like the idea of unions for what some unions do. No, because I think, just in theory, you can have a union without that sort of, ridiculousness. If a specific company, business, whatever, doesn't need a union because they're satisfying, again, I talked about this last week, satisfying all the things in the spirit of unionism, that doesn't bother me at all. And charter schools seem like a very accessible idea, accessible for a lot of people, and a very good idea in a lot of ways. The thing that teacher from my high school was ranting about against charter schools is like, well, you need to give back to the community. I'm like, well, educating kids is giving back to the community.
Right.
And she didn't have much to say in response to that.
Well, I mean, let the money follow the kids. I mean, that they're the end product, so to speak, or they are the recipients, the beneficiaries of the end product. So I see nothing wrong with letting the public money go follow the students.
Yeah, I mean, you saw with the India segment, you saw like the hunger for the parents to get their kids educated.
Oh yeah,
and we talked. I think it was last week we talked about this too. If the education, like all of a sudden the government said, okay, no more public schools like that, and it just shut down. You think you wouldn't see just a outpouring of people like, go, no, get my kid back in some class. Here's a book. Here's somebody who wants to teach you what the book means. Go do that right now. I mean, it's just like, it's almost it probably is a natural inclination, again, due to like our fundamental essential identity, that we're just learning things. Minds learn things. That's what they do. Right. And it's just innate in us to make sure that our kids are educated most of the time.
Yep. No, I mean, there were people, my understanding is there were people in the old Soviet Union who thought that if the government didn't produce bread, there would be no bread.
Right. And that's a big problem with centralized government, is that you become so dependent on it. If they do cut off a program, thank you, that we're just screwed. Now we don't even know what to do. That's terrible. Yep. I mean, that's a terrible dependence. Educating somebody, again, like last week, parents are teachers of sorts. I mean, there's a lot more involved in being a parent. I get that, but teaching your kids how to behave in, social, in society, and, and professionally, and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of skills are learned from your parents or not. And that's the importance of parenting. And, some people are very bad parents and their kids turn out, equally as bad. But what do you think about parents' involvement in education? Because that came up too, and that comes up a lot in the Green Party.
Well, I think it's very important, and I'll tell you, it's politically popular. That's for sure. I mean, yes. I think Terry McAuliffe, when he ran for governor for a second term of governor, Virginia is the only state where people can serve an infinite number of terms, but only one consecutive term, and so they have to. It's a weird thing. So there has to be a gap. He tried to run. He was a Democratic nominee in 2021, and he might have lost the governor's mansion in Virginia about a comment that, parents shouldn't be involved or shouldn't be able to be involved in the education of their children, and that went over like a lead balloon in Virginia. And so Glenn Youngkin won the governor's race in 2021. So I would say, but I think, again, I mean, I think that parents should be involved. You're going to have a lot of parents who won't be involved, and sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not good. Because I can see that there might be some parents where it's just best maybe if they're just not involved. But overall, the average couple, the average parents, yeah, they should be involved. I don't think they should just to hand the keys over for their children's education, their children's future, just to hand the keys over to educational authorities and then they're on their way or thinking about other things. That's not a good look.
Yeah, no. So this was Virginia or West Virginia?
Virginia.
Oh, okay. Because I read a stat that West Virginia is the least amount of high school graduates. It's like 35.6 of the adult population is actually graduated high school.
Really?
Yeah, it's really low. Like it's really bad.
Wow. I mean, I would have guessed West Virginia. I mean, if you'd said, well, what state has the lowest percentage? If that's the lowest percentage, you'd guess Mississippi, you'd guess West Virginia. No offense, folks, but that, wow, 35% with a high school degree. Wow. That's
pretty bad.
Pretty low.
That's really low. So I think the national average last time I checked, and this has been a few years easily. So it might be dated, but it was 25% of the adult population had bachelor's degree, which I thought was shockingly low as well.
What percentage was that?
25% of the adult population, so 18 and above, had bachelor's degrees. Huh. Now, also understand too, like just culturally and chronologically, the emphasis on education as a requirement for success in any level is relatively new. You go back to as far as vast and overwhelming as it is. Back in the day, so let's talk about culture and academic expectations. My mother is Italian off the boat, 1956, literally. They didn't give a damn about education. You got a job, you made money, you get married, you have babies. That's what you do, and you be a good Catholic boy. That I didn't do any of that. I actually went to school, didn't get married. I don't have any kids that I know of. All sorts of things. Where I think about, I need to say this well so I don't get in trouble, but I think that there are certain cultures that actually emphasize, just by cultural design, emphasize education more greatly than other ones, which is fine. I mean, it's not good nor bad. Well, I don't know. But would you agree with that? Did you want to poke holes in that, or?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that there are cultures that prize education more than others. And I don't know. I mean, it's up to the people going forward. I mean, certainly with Asian Americans, it seems like they prize education.
Just more than statistically, it's much higher.
Yeah. So, culture absolutely matters, and the home
culture is very important. I think you can change culture. That's the beauty of it,
right?
That's part of
the process. But also, it's household to household as well. I mean, there are exceptions, for better or for worse. To the overall cultural milieu, using a fancy word. It's absolutely. I mean, they say politics is downstream from culture. Well, education, damn near everything would be, I would think.
Yeah, no, culture is very pervasive, very important in a lot of ways. I just don't want it to be like a limitation on human progress. That's where I started chiming in.
I'll tell you one thing that really stinks. I'll give you an idea of an education requirement that totally is absurd.
Okay.
Is okay. So I'm a certified public accountant. I have an active CPA license in Illinois right now. Used to have one in Virginia. Used to have one in Indiana, going way back. Anyway, but I did have a master's degree, so I would have qualified for this. But now for years now, I forget when this was instituted. It could be 20 years ago, something like that. There's an education requirement for a certified public accountant license, I think in all of the states right now, that requires basically 30 semester hours beyond a bachelor's degree, sort of a fifth year of schooling, so to speak. And it doesn't even matter what the schooling is. You could be taking Spanish lessons, or, it could be totally disconnected with accounting work, but they demand that in order to become a CPA. Even if you can pass the CPA exam, if you don't have that 5th year of study under your belt, they won't give you the license. And of course, that helps create a shortage of accountants, which some CPAs, of course, like. And I think I just read there are a couple of states, I forget which one, a couple of states working to do away with that requirement because it's a stupid requirement. If somebody has a bachelor's degree, they have enough schooling to be a quality, if they want to be a quality CPA. And that's just completely nonsensical and is only put in place to reduce the number of CPAs and make things slightly cushier for the CPAs who are grandfathered into the old system and other CPAs who have the 5th year of schooling.
Yeah, that's strikingly ridiculous. Wouldn't you just need the right software? I mean, just to know how to plug the numbers in. I mean, at least nowadays. No, am I oversimplifying it?
I could see that there are some judgments that need to be made.
Okay.
It's interesting you're saying that. I'm using TurboTax right now. I've not filed my tax return yet. Yeah, and it's it's going to help things a lot. I need to get back to it. I haven't finished it yet for 2022. But there's certainly things that come up though. I mean, it's not just doing taxes, it's doing audit work, it's doing, review and compilation work. So there is professional knowledge and judgment that certainly comes into play in being an accountant, no question.
Yeah.
And it's not just, and there are judgments that are made all the time, estimates and things. It's not nearly as cut and dry as some people.
It's just adding and subtracting numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
Basic arithmetic. And I'm glad for people like you that want to be accountants, because I would rather put a fork in my eye. And there are a few things I love more than mathematics. I love math. But just sitting around all day, I don't know if I could do that. That's why I chose gardening. I need to be in motion or bad things happen. But going back real quick to the parents involved in education, because I was trying to make a connection. I actually went on a tangent. I don't know how I feel about it, only because I can't get myself to a place where I think it's okay for parents to be wholly not involved. But at the same time, I see schools and curriculums and teachers and principals getting really frustrated because you have such a multitude of different parenting styles and expectations that you have contradictory wants of your child's education, which has a curriculum needs to cover all the students. Okay, you want me to teach, say, creationism? Okay, well, I'm not going to do that, but I'm the parents. I don't care. I'm not going to do it because it's not the right thing to do. Do you see what I'm saying? And I know parents who are just all about being involved. And I understand the involvement, parental involvement in their kids' education does not necessarily mean parental commandeering of their kids' education.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Would you agree with that? Or
yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah, because I know that I have friends who said, well, I corrected, my kids' teachers' instructions. I'm like, well, why do you think it's a correction? Yeah. How do you know you didn't just make them dumber? Why do you think you know as much about teaching as these people?
Well, yeah, I think that it's, I think it's a fair point. It's a matter of judgment, and the parents, and some parents are, willing to make changes to make it easier for their kids. After all, that college scandal that caught a bunch of famous people. Remember that opera? I forget what it was, but
it was out west in California. What was it? Tom Hanks? No,
it was. I forget the name of it, but there was a famous actress from Desperate Housewives who's married to Bill Macy, William H. Macy.
Oh, that's right.
I forget her name offhand, but they're from all walks of life. These incredibly wealthy people who paid huge money to get their kids into the prestigious schools or falsify that they were on the rowing team or something like that. So, parents can do wrong things, bad things to supposedly help their child.
Yeah, no, I remember that. That was crazy. I don't remember her name either, but did she go to jail?
I think so for a little while. And damn, I'm sorry. It's that getting older thing. Maybe I should drink less or something. And
never say that again.
but anyway, she was on Desperate Housewives.
Right, I remember. Yeah, I can see her face. I just can't remember.
Yeah,
the
me
name.
too.
I can see her walking out of the corner.
Felicity Huffman.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, all right.
There you go. See, it all comes back after the.
It all comes back
after the martini fog settles. So yeah, so they were talking about Chile and the wine industry and that kind of thing, and how that innovated and created like a monetary resource, and like like that's the beauty of education too. Like there's so many things to learn about. Like it's like the world is so wonderfully full of knowledge. I love that. I love that. That's why I studied philosophy, because it's like the grandiose. It's like covers everything. You miss some of the details for sure, but that you just get on your own. But like everything has a philosophical underpinning to it. That's why I love it so much. And especially why I focus on philosophy of science, because now I got even more interesting shit. But like the world is just so full of experience and knowledge and wonder and awe and beauty. And it's just, it baffles me that people don't want to learn. Now, admittedly, back when I was in high school, I was not a good student, not even close. I was a metalhead in the 80s. I was your typical metal. If you ever seen Breakfast Club, like John Bender, the Burnout, that was me. I wasn't even supposed to graduate. There's certain reasons why they pushed me through, and I'll tell you off air. But something changed, and just eventually, like I think it's because I started smoking pot. I'm not even kidding, because like when you're stoned, for me at least, I was like just so fascinated by everything. I was like, wow, that's sort of stereotype. That it's just, I'm like, I wanted more. I just all of a sudden became like, just my appetite for knowledge became ravenous, and I just wanted more and more and more. And so I went to school, and I ended up, got all sorts of degrees, and it's fun. And it's just, I think it betters your life. I think it's not just merely about getting a job, which that's important too. But this, like, I hear a lot of people on the right criticize like majors that aren't directed directly towards a job. Like the only major that should exist is business. I'm like, oh, that's ridiculous. Because it's all about money and everything else. But there is something about your own personal individuation, of which knowledge is required. It just makes you a better person as an individual, knowing more. Just that's the nature of knowledge, right?
Right. Exactly. I mean, I would say that I took a second major in political science at Indiana University. My first major was economics. My second major was political science, and people would say, "Well, that's a dumb major." But but it was. I mean, it has been something that I have used in other aspects of my life.
As somebody involved in the political schema. As a libertarian, a very active libertarian, these things are going to give you insights, and you're going to probably refer back to like, oh, I remember learning this, and this is why this is happening over here. And it gives you explanatory power and predictive power and all sorts of wonderful things. And it just ultimately should make you just a more rational person, which again, I think is like the highest goal personally, but that's me being a philosopher. It's a wonderful experience. Everybody should be educated one way or another. And I wanted to ask you one more thing. What was it? Oh, okay. So there's some people who want to extend. Well, you're probably going to. Okay. Like Bernie Sanders wants to extend state paid for public schools from K to 12 to K to 13, 14, 15, 16. Like through your bachelor's degree, it's all free. Now, like in Europe, and I know in England, through your master's degree, you don't have to pay anything. If you want a PhD, you got to start paying. And I don't have any data on the success or lack of comparatively, but like, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I can probably guess what you're saying.
No, I don't agree with that. I think that we already have a government that has promised too much and delivers too little. And we have a terrible fiscal imbalance within with the federal government. States generally have to balance their budgets, although there are people who argue that Illinois doesn't do that. But in any event, I think that it's not free. I mean, there is a cost to it. You're going to have taxpayers picking up the bill then for students to spend grades 13 through 16 doing whatever they want to do. No, I would stand four square against that.
Would you change K through 12?
I would, to the extent that I don't think government has any business operating schools. I think that you have to split the finance versus operation question, but I
Oh,
would
okay.
like to see
Interesting.
government not operating schools. I'm not to the point where of some people say we don't want any total separation of school and state. I can't go there right now,
Right.
but with more use of universal education tax credits, then maybe we could get there and not have a harmful effect on any students. So, that's what I would say.
Yeah, no, for sure, and that makes sense. I like that division between finances and operation. That's interesting. Actually, it's something I want to think about more. That sounds right to me. Because the stop funding of all public schools would be a disaster.
Right off the bat, there'd be a big problem over the short term anyway.
Yeah. Again, you would piss off a lot of parents.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like, when we talk about like, free markets or individuals making choices, of course I'm for that. And that's what I would always prefer. But there's kind of another side to it. And that's where a lot of people, especially on the left, like the big government people just come in and say, well, remember, like, when we had that more of a free enterprise educational system back in the day when there was less government regulation, that's how like minorities and like, poor people got ostracized from the public school system or private school systems, I guess, in that regard. Even public up until the 60s, actually. You remember what happened was it Selma, Alabama, when Kennedy forced them to accept minority. Remember that? You ever seen Forrest Gump?
Oh yeah, I saw Forrest Gump. Sure.
It's in. That's the only image I can remember, but I'm not probably getting the information correct. But I mean, public schools were segregated,
Right.
and like you can't, if you're black, you can't go there. Sorry, it's even though it's public. And so people like pointed that and go, see, but that's what's going to happen if you allow all these regulations to go away.
No, I don't think so. And
I don't think so either.
there are and if that were the case, then why does school choice enjoy the support of about 70% of African Americans? This idea, I know this idea is being promoted that by some people that, oh, well, Milton Friedman, he wanted to, and James Buchanan, they wanted to throw their hat in with the segregationists. No, that was not the case. But I guess, okay, why does the vast majority of African American families want school choice? Answer me that.
Oh, those are awesome, pushbacks because they're accurate and they're pending an answer. By the way, I'm still waiting to hear anybody give me an answer that's worth a shit to that. Because there's a lot of people on the left, especially, probably only, who think that if you're anti, big government, you're racist, you're sexist, and the only thing that can fix anything is government, and how dare you? And I think the exact opposite is the case. Now, I don't know if I would have said that same thing 150 years ago. I don't know because conditions change. I don't know what I would have said. I'm not sure. But I mean, nowadays I'm going to say no. I don't buy it. I think government is more of a problem than anything. I want local communities to get the funding they need and operate on their own levels. That's what's important. So, wow, that was super fast show, man.
Yeah. Exactly. And you saw Little Bug. She's back here, unfortunately.
I love that. I love cats.
Bug.
And what's her name?
Miranda is her given name, but she goes by Little Bug as her nickname. And she is my fiance, Julie Fox's cat.
I love cats.
Likes to come and bug me at most inopportune moments. But
those eyes, she is gorgeous.
She's an intention hog.
So. I like dogs, but I'm more of a cat person. And if you knew my dispositions, one day you'll actually see my tattoos. I love black cats. Very cool.
So anyway, well, I think I told you earlier I made a boo-boo next week, and I can't do the show next week.
That's all right. Yeah, I'll either take the day off entirely or do something on my own. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
I'll decide that day. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in to Perspectives, a third-party discussion with Bill Redpath from the Libertarian Party. I'm David Rich from the Green Party. Again, we're going to have to find something we disagree on. I think when we get to climate change, that'll probably be the biggie. Yeah, so that might be our last episode. Who knows? No, I'm just kidding. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Until next time, take care of yourselves.